Sometimes it's just a simple sentence, not some complex theory or a big plan.
Yeah, just a few words that really click.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, looking through all the material you shared, the articles, notes, reflections, that sentence seems to be one day or day one, you choose.
It sounds so straightforward, right? Almost too simple.
It does. But our mission here really is to dig into what that choice actually means. Based on what we've gathered, we're looking at the surprising costs of waiting for that one day.
And exploring the flip side, the power, maybe a quiet power, of just deciding, okay, today is day one, even if it feels messy.
Yeah, messy is a good word for it.
And the sources we looked at, they come at this from different angles, don't they? Some psychological insights, some really practical stories.
All pointing to this tension between waiting and, well, just beginning.
So let's start with one day. Why is that so tempting?
Well, it feels nice, doesn't it? Like you're being patient with yourself, holding on to hope.
One day I'll do X,
Yeah.
one day I'll do Y. It keeps the dream alive without the immediate pressure.
Right. But what a lot of these sources point out is that one day is often just a delay tactic, procrastination in disguise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's vague. It doesn't have a date attached.
Yeah.
You can't circle one day on your calendar.
And if it's not scheduled, not made concrete,
yeah.
it just doesn't happen, does it? It doesn't move things forward.
And then, according to some of the psych notes in the stack, something else happens. The longer it sits.
Oh, it gets heavier.
Yeah, right. It starts to turn into this pressure, maybe even guilt, that feeling of falling behind.
That bright someday suddenly feels more like never.
Which leads to this idea in one article about the expensive promise of waiting. It's fascinating.
Expensive? How so?
It's not just about the future thing you're missing out on. It's the present cost, the time, the energy, the mental space you spend. Now, thinking about it, worrying about it.
Or just living the life you don't want while you wait to start the one you do.
Exactly. And that, the article argues, costs you confidence. It drains your motivation. It chips away at your self-trust, maybe even more than trying and not quite succeeding would.
That makes a lot of sense. And you see how waiting can hide behind seemingly good reasons, too? Like, oh, I'll start when?
When I have more time, when things calm down after this week.
Yeah, those classic ones. And sometimes they are real constraints, but other times...
They become habits. Waiting becomes the default setting for anything that feels a bit daunting or unclear.
And there's a real danger there, isn't there? One of the behavioral notes talked about this. What happens to your identity?
Right. You start to almost believe you're the kind of person who just plans or dreams, but doesn't actually do.
Someone who doesn't finish things. Oof. That's a tough internal story.
It really is. And it feels like you end up living more in your head, imagining, regretting, feeling stuck than actually in your life.
But the reminder in the sources is key. You're not stuck like a tree. You actually can move. You can choose.
Okay, so that's the one-day trap. How do we pivot? What does day one really look like, according to these materials?
Well, the first thing the stack makes clear is what day one isn't. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment.
No magic feeling of readiness required.
Right. No need for it to be January 1st or a Monday or anything special. And you definitely don't need someone else to say, okay, go.
No, it's much more internal. It's about willingness. Just being willing to try.
Willing to start, even if you haven't got it all figured out.
Exactly. Taking that breath and just beginning right now, in this moment.
And it doesn't have to be a huge leap either. The sources emphasize that starting can be quiet. Just showing up.
Yeah, and here's something that really stood out for me from one reflection. Day one usually feels kind of awkward.
Huh. Yes. Awkward, uncertain, definitely not perfect.
And that feeling is often why people stop before they even really start. They expect fireworks, you know?
They think starting means being instantly good at it.
Right. But when it feels clumsy or nothing clicks immediately, they think, oh, this isn't working, I'm not ready.
But maybe day one doesn't need to be impressive. Maybe it just needs to be honest.
Honest. I like that. There was that anecdote from one writer.
Oh, yeah, the novel. They've been putting it off for ages, right? Saying one day.
Yeah, and then they finally sat down, expected inspiration to strike.
And got nothing. Just the blinking cursor.
Pretty much. Blinking, judging. But they stayed and typed one sentence. Just one.
And it wasn't even a good sentence, was it?
Apparently terrible. But it was real. It marked the shift from hiding to showing up. That was the point.
And that connects to another theme. Clarity. We think we need it before we start.
But so often, The sources suggest clarity comes from starting, from the action itself.
Like walking into fog, you only see the next few feet once you take a step.
Precisely. You don't need the whole map. Just need to move kind of forward.
So day one is less a performance, more permission.
Permission, yes. Permission to be imperfect, to learn as you go, to stumble a bit.
It's about showing up for yourself, really, without needing applause or perfection.
And sometimes, weirdly, there's a kind of peace in that messy start, right next to the awkwardness.
The peace of doing instead of just worrying about doing it.
Exactly. You don't know the outcome, but you're finally in it.
Okay, so you have this awkward, maybe tiny start. How does that actually build into real change? Because we often think change has to be this massive, dramatic thing.
Yeah, the big makeover montage. But the research and the stories, they mostly point to something else.
You'll think smaller.
Much smaller. Change usually happens through these tiny, consistent actions. Things that barely seem noticeable on their own.
Like what? Give me examples from the stack.
Okay, like, showing up to write for just 10 minutes. Or going for that short walk even when you don't feel like it. Or maybe just saying no gently to something that drains you.
Things that don't feel like they'll change your whole life overnight.
Exactly. They don't look like much, but they build momentum.
Momentum. That feels key. And it's not about one huge push.
No, it's about repeat effort. Small steps, done consistently, that's what gets things moving.
But that's where people often get tripped up, isn't it? They dismiss the small step.
Totally. You hear it all the time, right? What's the point? Meditating for 2 minutes? That's nothing.
Reading one page? That won't get me anywhere. They compare the tiny action to the huge goal.
And feel discouraged. But they're missing the point. That one page might not finish the book today.
But it changes your direction from not writing to writing.
Yes. It changes your vector, even slightly. And that, repeated, adds up massively over time. It's like pushing something heavy.
The first nudge is the hardest. Feels like nothing's happening.
But each little push after that, it builds. The door starts to creak open, then it moves more easily.
So that reminder from One Piece was really good. Better to do a small thing daily than a big thing once in a blue moon.
Right. Read one paragraph, write one sentence, clean one corner, speak one kind word to yourself.
These aren't trivial. They're like proof.
Proof. Evidence you're building. Evidence that you are becoming someone who shows up, even when tired, even when it's not perfect.
And those little choices, repeated, they build a rhythm. And eventually, that rhythm starts to shape who you believe you are.
You build the motivation by moving, not by waiting for it. You just decide to act, maybe out of integrity or for your future self.
Because it's definitely easier to keep going once you're already going. Starting from zero is the hard part.
And somewhere in that process, between the waiting and the awkward starting, you might realize something important.
What's that?
That this isn't just a movie you're watching, it's your story.
Yeah. We spend so much time being spectators, don't we? Scrolling, watching others.
Comparing our messy reality to their curated highlights, it's easy to forget we're meant to be in the arena participating.
Not just watching other people build or heal or create. We're supposed to be doing that ourselves.
One essay put it really nicely. You're the author, not just the audience.
That doesn't mean you need the whole plot figured out, though.
Not at all. It just means you're willing to pick up the pen, to write the next scene.
And that scene might be trying something. Or resting. Or walking away from something.
Or walking towards something. Even if you're not sure what it is yet, it's about writing real seams.
And letting go of the idea that your life needs to look impressive. It just needs to be yours.
You don't need permission slips. Not from the universe, not from your boss, not even from your own fear disappearing.
Maybe just look at your hands. They're right there. They can choose. They can act.
Yeah. Your story isn't written in giant headlines anyway. It's in the small stuff.
The daily choices, the internal self-talk, the effort, the forgiveness.
And the willingness to just begin again when you falter, which you will.
Because you are allowed to start over. You can rewrite things. The page is always blank.
You hold the pen. That's the empowering part.
So let's bring it back around for you listening. That question. What has one day actually cost you? Really think about it.
And could today, maybe right now, be day one for something, even something small?
There's real power in just deciding, okay, today is different, even in one tiny way. It's not about pressure.
No, it's about presence. Just showing up for yourself in this moment.
And maybe even just listening to this, reflecting on it. That's a start, right? That's you returning to your own curiosity.
Returning to your why. Why did you even have that one day thought to begin with? What matters there?
Stay close to whatever that is, whatever pulls you, even gently.
Because ultimately, what all these sources seem to suggest is that the gap between dreaming and doing, it's bridged by willingness.
The willingness to take that first, maybe awkward, definitely imperfect step.
That's what separates waiting from beginning.
So maybe the final thought is just this. What's one tiny thing, something almost impossible to fail at, that you could do today?
Just one small action that proves to yourself, yeah, today can be day one.